The job at Blackwood National Park paid $45 an hour. For a college dropout living in a tent, it sounded like a dream. No visitors, no phones, just me and the woods. But when the lead ranger handed me a laminated card with 5 rules written in shaking handwriting, the dream died. He didn't say good luck, he said stay in the light. By midnight, I realized the rules weren't there to keep me organized. They were there to keep me alive. At 10 p.m., I had to do my first perimeter check. The air was thick. It smelled like wet fur and old copper. I kept my flashlight low, sweeping it across the dirt path. Everything was normal. Then I heard it, a soft thud from above, like a heavy fruit hitting a branch. I remembered the rule. Do not shine the light into the canopy, but curiosity is a poison. I felt something wet drop onto my shoulder. I touched it. It was thick. It was warm. I didn't think. I flicked the light upward. I was back inside, leaning against the door, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. My shoulder was still damp with that warm, thick fluid. I didn't want to know what it was. I just wanted the sun to come up.
The silence of the woods changed. Usually a forest is full of noise crickets, wind, the rustle of leaves. But Blackwood had gone dead quiet. It's a phenomenon hunters call the zone of silence. It means a predator is nearby. The voice was thin, carried by the wind. I froze. It sounded like my mother. But my mother lived 3 states away in a nursing home, double quotes Thomas. Tani, it's cold out here. Can you let me in? I wanted to help her. I wanted to believe she was there. Thomas, ... Thomas Edward, ... please. My middle name. Rule number 1 flashed in my mind. If they use your middle name, lock the door immediately. Thomas Edward. Thomas Edward. Thomas Edward. It wasn't a person. It was a recording. Mimicking a memory to get me to open that door. I realized then that the echo wasn't just a sound. It was a lure. And according to the rules, I wasn't just being watched. I was being invited. I sat there, hands over my ears, as the scratching started on the roof. That's when I remembered rule number 4. I checked my watch. The scratching on the roof stopped instantly, was replaced by a sound far worse. The radio. Didn't hiss like normal static, it roared. It was a jagged electronic scream that felt like it was peeling the paint off the walls. I squeezed. My eyes shut. 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes. But then, at 3:03 a.m., the frequency shifted. The static smoothed out into a deep, wet thumping sound. Thump, thump, dash, thump. It was a heartbeat. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from the floorboards right beneath my feet. It took one last deep lungful of air and clamped. It was a physical liquid, blacker than the room, crawling across the floor like spilled ink. My lungs started to burn. 30 seconds. 1 minute. The heartbeat grew louder, shaking the glass in the windows. It felt like my own heart was trying to sync up with it. Just as I was about to gasp. 3:16 a.m., I had survived the broadcast. But as I wiped the sweat from my eyes, I looked at the security monitor. He was looking directly into the camera. He looked perfectly normal, perfectly human. Screened out the man in the yellow jacket was standing on the gravel path, but he wasn't wearing boots, wasn't wearing shoes at all. He had no feet, just long, gray, tapered points of skin that looked exactly like the legs I had seen in the trees. Hester did. To knock, not on the gate. He was knocking on the monitor screen from the inside. I couldn't stay at the desk anymore. The cabin didn't feel like a sanctuary. It felt like a trap. I remembered what the competitors' scripts always did. They looked for the history of the bone. To survive, I needed to know what this place was before it was a park.ipul lead. The wood groaned and gave way, revealing a shallow crawl space. Inside wasn't a monster. It was a metal box, a time capsule of terror. The forensic evidence. Inside were 3 items. A Polaroid photo, a cassette tape, and a leather journal belonging to Ranger Miller, dated 1974. Visual, the ranger flips through the journal. The handwriting starts neat but becomes a frantic scrawl toward the end. The journal entry, they aren't. From the woods grew around them. We found the needlemen in the cave system beneath the ridge. They don't eat meat, they eat sound. They mimic the things we love, so we'll keep making noise. If the park goes quiet, they starve. That's why the government turned this into a national park, to keep a steady supply of hikers coming. The Polaroid, I picked up the photo. It showed 5 rangers standing in front of this very cabin in 1974. They were all smiling. But when I looked closer, I saw the man on the far right. It was the same man in the yellow raincoat I had just seen on the monitor. He hadn't aged a day. If you're reading this, you're the new Night Watch. You've probably seen the feet by now. Don't bother running. The gates don't lead back to the highway anymore. They'll lead back to center suddenly. The cabin's thermal alarm triggered. Something was standing directly on the other side of the wall, not at the door, not at the window. It was pressed against the wood, inches from my head, and then it started to hum. It was the exact melody my mother used to sing to me when I was 5. I know I couldn't stay. The journal was clear. The park wasn't a place. It was a stomach. I grabbed the keys in the metal box, lunging for the back door. I didn't look up at the canopy, didn't listen to the voices. I ran toward the equipment shed, the only other structure on the map. I saw the light in the cabin window. My heart stopped. Sitting in the chair, hunched over the desk just as I had been minutes ago, was a figure. It was wearing my uniform. Was holding my fire poker. It was me. I realized the loop wasn't just the road, it was the time. The creature didn't just mimic my voice. It was replacing my existence. If I went back in that cabin to confront it, I would become the shadow under the door. I backed into the equipment shed and slammed the door. I didn't lock it. As the first ray of sun hit the tops of the pines, the humming stopped. Out. Weight on the world lifted. I stepped out, expecting to see the highway. Instead, I saw the front gate of Blackwood National Park. A car pulled up. Young man looking exactly like I did a week out. Nervous, hopeful, and Broke stepped out. He looked at me. "Hey," he said. "I'm the new night shift. You Henderson?" I looked down at my hands. They were pale. My fingernails were starting to sharpen into points. I reached into my pocket and handed him the laminated card. "Stay in the light," I whispered. My voice sounded thin. It sounded like an echo.